Hi, Victor. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. We have DORA compliance webinar today. I hope you can see my screen and you can hear me okay. Victor, please confirm, is the screen okay?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so let's start. You can see agenda on the screen. Again, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. And my name is Irina. I'm a virtual legal officer, DORA expert in Legal Notes. Legal Notes is the tech-enabled legal consultancy that functions as a delegated legal department for businesses in regulated industries and technology sector. We have more than 8 years on the market and more than 300 clients served. We support businesses across legal, compliance, contract, and company incorporation tasks, and in many, many jurisdictions. We cover all most popular jurisdictions for tech businesses, for Web3 projects. When it comes to compliance, we specialize in MiCA, GDPR, and DORA too. So as you can see on the screen, today's discussion is focused on what DORA really means in practice, not from a technical implementation perspective. I'm sure there are tech beasts in your teams who can handle that, but from a governance, legal, and operational readiness point of view, as this is what we specialize in. And a few words about what DORA is and why it matters. So DORA stands for Digital Operational Resilience Act. I'm sure if you join this webinar, you have some knowledge of that. But DORA on its own is only the starting point. The real detail sits in the Commission Delegated Regulations, or CDRs, which explain exactly how risk management, incident reporting, testing, third-party oversight must work in practice. So basically, they are enacted together with DORA. DORA and those CDRs run to almost 300 pages, and they are both binding. Since DORA and those CDRs are regulations, this means that it directly applies to practically any financial entity in the European Union. So no need to publish their own regulations in certain countries. It's a EU-wide regulations that apply directly, and they relate to cybersecurity for the financial sector. DORA is fully effective already since January 2025. So compliance is mandatory for EU market access and for EU-based financial institutions. And why was that created? Why was that introduced in the first place? Because the average cost of data breach is now close to $5 million, according to some stats. And that's increasing. What's striking is that nearly 70% of those cybersecurity incidents involve human errors, human factors like phishing or stolen credentials, or not advanced technical exploits. At the same time, attacks exploiting unpatched software have almost tripled, which shows that basic hygiene gaps remain a major risk, and many of the DORA requirements cover those risks and risk mitigating factors. The good news are that organizations use automation and AI-driven solutions, and that significantly reduces the cost of those cybersecurity breaches. And the global cybercrime costs heading towards $10.5 trillion annually. Basically, that's quite striking figure. So this resilience is no longer optional, it's really essential to avoid all those financial losses. DORA is often framed as the cybersecurity regulation, but that is only the part of the story. In reality, DORA introduces clear expectations around governance, accountability, and evidence of control over those processes. It requires organizations to demonstrate that those ICT risks, information and communication technology risks, are understood, managed, overseen, and there is senior management at the board level accountable for all those matters within the organization. And now we'll discuss who's affected, what's the scope of DORA. Victor, is the screen okay? Can you see the presentation? Switching.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for the confirmation. So, who DORA applies to? It applies to a broad range of financial entities, including fintechs, CASPs, payment institutions, investment firms, insurance companies, and information and communication service providers that serve those financial institutions, like SaaS or cloud technology providers offering services to financial institutions, basically. Unless the organization qualifies as micro enterprise, so like a early stage startup, it is likely subject to full DORA framework. This is important point, and we will cover that down the line today, as many firms misunderstand or underestimate their scope. If a company subject to DORA simply skips compliance, the consequences are quite serious and not theoretical. Even if you have not seen any public information about fines or the consequences of those incidents or any enforcement of DORA, it's just because it's quite early. It's a just 1 year since it has been enacted, so maybe no vivid cases of public enforcements, but I'm sure regulators are taking this very seriously, and if firms do not comply, there will be serious consequences. Information and communication service providers and those financial institutions, if they are not compliant with DORA, they can be subject to administrative fines. They can get binding remediation orders. Even management can be personally liable. So basically, some governance scrutiny can be applied. And beyond the regulatory action, firms that are not DORA ready often fail licensing reviews, audits, enterprise due diligence, which can delay go-to-market plans, block partnerships, and undermine clients' trust. So, if you are an ICT service provider, for example, if you want to get a contract with a large bank or large payment institution, if you're not DORA compliant, then most probably you will not get onboarded as their vendor because of those third-party service providers selection rules, let's say, let's call them this way. So basically, that's now a key to the business growth for those ICT providers, for the software solution providers that are servicing fintech and financial industry. So now there is important principle of proportionality that applies in DORA, and we wanted to cover in a bit more detail what this simplified framework really means and what's the eligibility. between the full framework and between the simplified framework. Is your entity really eligible to apply just the simplified framework? So, who's eligible? Under DORA, a very narrow group of companies qualifies for the simplified compliance framework. In practice, this applies only to micro enterprises in the financial sector, and to be considerate that micro enterprise a firm must have fewer than 10 employees. So really like early stage of the company growth. And annual turnover or a balance sheet total below 2 million euros. So if any of those factors fail, then you are automatically not eligible. Even for these firms, a simplification does not mean exemption. Core obligations still apply, including basic ICT risk management, incident handling, business continuity arrangements, third-party service provider oversight. What changes is mainly the depth and complexity of documentation, testing, governance, not the obligation to address those areas. So it's important to note that many regulated firms, including most of CASPs, crypto asset service providers in Europe, fintechs, payment institutions, investment firms, they do not qualify for the simplified framework. Once they begin to scale, prepare for licensing, onboard institutional clients, most organizations should plan for full DORA framework, using proportionality to tailor implementation rather than assuming treatment will not apply. Basically, that's on who's eligible. When we talk about DORA simplified framework, it's important to be very precise about what that actually means in practice. It does not mean optional. It does not mean fewer. It means lighter governance, simpler processes, reduced complexity. Under the simplified framework, companies do not need a dedicated board level ICT or resilience committee, or maybe even a dedicated person. That the functions could be combined. Oversight can sit within the board or an existing risk function, as long as the responsibility is clearly defined. So, for example, your CTO or COO could be also responsible for compliance and for those risk management activities within the company. Risk assessments can also be simpler. There's no expectation for advanced models, heat maps, or complex KRIs. A structured qualitative assessment is sufficient when you are assessing your cybersecurity risks. All those risks need to be identified and documented. Testing requirements are reduced as well for those micro enterprises within the simplified framework. Firms are not subject to threat-led penetration testing, and the number of sophistication and sophistication of resilience tests is lower. So, like annual testing would be sufficient. Vendor oversight still applies, but in a lighter form. Fewer providers will be treated as critical, and sub outsourcing and exit planning can be simpler. So all those matters are usually embedded into the contracts with those ICT service providers. The key message when it comes to the simplified DORA framework, it's that it's a reduced depth, not reduced accountability. So all core areas remain, just the scale of all those technical tasks is proportionate to the small size of those businesses and to the risk profile of the firm. And there are certain types of businesses that are specifically excluded, and I think you can see that on the screen. Yeah, so that's on the simplified framework. Now, yeah, so here we go, the full framework and what that means in practice for businesses and from the operational point of view. When we talk about the full DORA framework, business owners often ask what that actually mean for the team and for the budget especially. In practice, DORA always starts with gap analysis. This is not a technical penetration test. It's a structured review of what your company already has versus what the regulation expects. We look at governance setup, existing policies, incident handling, continuity planning, vendor management, and documentation. When you perform that gap analysis, the output is the clear list of gaps, priorities, and the realistic roadmap, realistic set of steps and tasks with personnel assigned to those tasks to make sure you have a clear vision of how you can become fully compliant. From a legal and documentation point of view, DORA is largely about building a solid foundation. This means drafting and formalizing policies, procedures, plans that regulators expect to see, like governance documents, ICT, risk management policies, incident response playbooks, business continuity and disaster recovery plans, third-party oversight frameworks, and reporting templates. These documents are not just paperwork, they define who does what, when, how during normal operations, and how people act during incidents. So your team is all aligned and trained beforehand, before those incidents happen. So when they happen, everyone knows what to do, what to record, what to report, to whom, and in what order. In terms of the roles inside the company, DORA requires clear responsibility. Someone must be accountable for ICT risk, someone for incident handling, someone for business continuity, and someone for vendor oversight. In smaller organization, this does not mean hiring full team. Roles can be combined, but responsibilities must be clearly assigned and approved by senior management or the board. Operationally, DORA creates both one-time and ongoing tasks. One-time work includes drafting documentation and all those policies and preparing all those reporting templates and registers and defining processes, running the initial risk and impact analysis, training team, and having internal audit to make sure your organization is ready for external regulator reviews. Ongoing work includes periodic risk reviews, access reviews, incident logging, continuity testing. Staff training is ongoing. So the first training usually happens when you prepare for DORA implementation, and then on an ongoing basis, you train your staff on the password hygiene, access control policies, and stuff like that. And again, management reporting, that's also an important aspect of DORA. This becomes part of day-to-day operations, not one-off project. There are also very real implementation and cost considerations for the business, and companies should plan early DORA is not primarily a technology spend for most operations. The biggest cost is people's time. Time spent preparing and maintaining documentation, participating in risk and incident reviews, running continuity tests, reviewing vendors, and producing evidence for audits. All those tasks quickly add up. From budgeting perspective, firms should expect recurring costs, not one-time expenses. These include external and internal audits, business continuity and disaster recovery tests, periodic security or resilience testing, and sometimes penetration testing, depending on the risk profile of your organization. Even when testing is outsourced, internal teams still need to prepare, attend those walkthroughs, uh, continuously train, and when the risks are identified, remediate those findings and improve the systems. A practical tip is to reuse and consolidate whenever possible, basically, for small organizations, especially. Many policies can be combined and registers can be maintained in a single structured format rather than in multiple disconnected files. This reduces both drafting effort and ongoing maintenance of those registers. Another important consideration is role allocation. So DORA does not require a large new compliance team, but it does require clear ownership, as we have already covered. Assigning named owners for ICT risk, incident handling, continuity, vendor oversight, even if those roles sit with existing staff, in your policies and your disaster recovery plans and other documentation, you should avoid confusion and last minute escalations and just predefine in advance who's responsible for what. It is also smart to plan compliance work around the business cycles. For example, schedule those reviews, tests, and audits during quieter periods rather than peak operational months. This helps prevent DORA from becoming a disruption to day-to-day business. And finally, treat that documentation as a living system, not a one-time deliverable that just sits somewhere on a drive or on your shelves. Policies, plans, registers will need updates as your business, technology, your vendors change, your business grows, evolves, you introduce new functionalities and stuff like that. Firms that build simple, maintainable documentation from day one generally spend far less time later than those that over-engineer and then struggle to keep things current and updatable. And so basically, the key business impact is this. DORA changes how you operate in some cases on a daily basis. Um, Many processes and technical solutions could be already in place. Most of the organizations and most of the team members probably already know what's the password hygiene or eh, how to keep the hardware secured in terms of access control. But it is important that everything is documented and not informal. Decisions become more documented, incidents become more formalized and documented, vendors are more closely scrutinized, and it just a bit more careful onboarding process for those vendors. And management oversight becomes more structured. Budgets need to account for compliance as an ongoing operational cost. That's a significant business impact, especially for small enterprises. But uh, since the cost of those cyber attacks is high and the potential fines for non-compliance are also very, very significant, this is probably uh, more dangerous than those operational expenses you will have in terms of preparing for DORA compliance and implementing it. Um, the upside of all that is that when you are compliant, you have clearer governance, fewer operational surprises, faster incident response, so less downtime, and stronger trust from regulators, partners, and your clients, especially enterprise clients. The next steps are to confirm your scope, assess your readiness, and build a proportionate compliance roadmap. We helped a bit here. Legal Notes is giving away a 20-step DORA compliance roadmap for all the attendees of this webinar. Our team prepared that. It's simple but practical, step-by-step guide that walks you through the full DORA journey from the initial gap analysis and governance setup through to the documentation preparation, incident readiness, etc. The roadmap is designed to help you understand what needs to be done in what order so you can plan realistically and avoid last minute surprises. So that roadmap will be made available to all attendees after the webinar. At Legal Notes, we help clients translate DORA requirements into clear, regulator-ready governance and documentation frameworks. Based on the gap analysis we conduct for our clients, we customize everything that needs to be done and then deliver step by step all that documentational foundation that then later serves as a strong, solid foundation for you to build those compliance walls on the foundation and enact those operational measures, technical measures based on the clearly defined, documented policies and procedures. That's it from my side. Um, of course, if you'd like an expert-led gap analysis, the full tailored DORA document stack tailored to your needs, please feel free to book a free 30-minute session to discuss your legal and compliance needs. And if you have any immediate questions related to our today's topic, we are ready to open Q&A part now. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Irina, for that insightful session. So now's the time for questions and answers. If you have any, please, in the next 2 minutes, feel free to use the chat or the Q&A box to leave whatever questions you have. If you don't have the questions now, that's also fine. When we send the recap of the webinar, perhaps your questions could come up. And while you read the roadmap as well, the questions could come up. So you can always reach out to us to answer your questions. But yeah, feel free to use the Q&A box for this session. Thank you.
Okay, we have one question in the Q&A box, how to use compliance roadmap. So it will be a PDF file with 20 steps and a short description of each step that helps you understand what needs to be done on that particular stage. It's very simple and the language is very like startup friendly. So that could help you just step by step fulfill that compliance aim. It's not a one day exercise for sure. Even just preparing all the documentation is a very time consuming matter. But with that clear plan, with that clear roadmap, you can achieve full compliance over time. And if you need our assistance for that, we are always happy to help. If there are no more questions, I think we can wrap up the webinar. Thanks everyone for joining and how legal notes can help with that. That's the starting point. What's the starting point? That's the following question from the same user. So from our perspective, we first of all start with the gap analysis. So it's usually two sessions we have with the clients, with their responsible personnel, for example, a CTO or COO or CISO, whoever is responsible for the compliance or for technical cybersecurity standards in within the company. After those sessions, we clearly define what are the gaps within the organization. Sometimes there's simply just nothing done yet. So then we just start with the full documentation pack that then serves the organization as the clear instructions on what needs to be done, implemented, and maintained later on. So legal notes produces that tailored roadmap based on the gap analysis and starts delivering the documents that are required to fill the gaps in your enterprise. A full DORA framework, it's more than 60 documents, policies, procedures, disaster recovery plans, continuity plans, and many registers that need to be maintained on an ongoing basis, and the templates for the reporting, for example. So all those documents are delivered by legal notes team in collaboration with the client's team. That is tailored to your specific organization. It's not just the generic templates, they are tailored for your specific type of services you provide, your specific type of technology, your users, your team. And based on that documentation, as I mentioned, those documents are a clear instruction to everyone um, um, within the organization on what needs to be done on a daily basis, what needs to be done in case of incidents, and how to evaluate those incidents, how to assess them, and how to act when they happen, how to report them, and how to also share the intelligence on those cybersecurity incidents. It's also one of the pillars of DORA to make sure those organizations that are affected by DORA, that have to be compliant with DORA, share intelligence and help the industry grow the cybersecurity standards, improve those standards, and reduce the risks of those incidents and reduce the costs, average costs of those incidents, protect the financial system's integrity, and protect the investors and clients of those financial institutions. I hope that addressed your question. Welcome. If there are no more questions, I think we can close the session. The recording will be available in our YouTube channel, and again, all the participants will receive that follow-up email with the roadmap. And if any questions, our team is always happy to connect, discuss your particular project, your needs, and see how we can help and assist and become your delegated legal department. Have a nice day, everyone, and thanks for the attention.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.